hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'm Reina Creole, and this is an Audience with the Queen podcast. And in this episode, I have with me someone I had the privilege of actually live streaming with on my Theme Park Geeks and Divas stream, and that is George, aka Disney Family Man 23 of Citrus Corner. So, how are you doing, George?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to be back on your channel, talking some Disney with you. I'm always anytime for a good conversation. So I'm rare and ready to go.
Well, excellent. It's going to be such a fun conversation. So we'll just say right off the bat, where are like you from, and what started you on your Disney journey?
Well, that's actually quite interesting because I'm so used to asking people that question myself. So to actually have it now mirrored back to me, that's quite interesting. Well, I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, born and raised. Um, Woohoo! Yeah, nothing too exciting about that, but
Okay,
uh,
I was on the other side, Philly,
yes.
Philly Metro.
Oh, there you go. But yeah, so grew up here in the Pittsburgh area, and from a very young age, I was pretty much the pioneer that spearheaded my family to
Mm.
get into Disney. And my mom knew about the company, what have you, but she wasn't like fully in depth. She'd never been to the parks and what have you, but she did, like, as a young baby, she would buy me like Mickey Mouse pajamas, and I'd have like a Disney mobile at the top of my crib, and I had a Mickey Mouse shaped birthday cake. And so it was like little subtle things here and there, but it wasn't until I started where I was able to watch TV, and then I started getting into watching the animated classics, Pinocchio, Snow White, uh, Beauty and the Beast. My very first Disney film that I saw in theaters was Aladdin, and
Ah,
and my first drive-in film was The Lion King. So I had a lot of first times, in cinema related to Disney, but it never really, it was just, okay, I'm watching these Disney classics. They all come from the
mhm.
same company. And at a young age, I knew that. Don't ask me how, but I did. um, but then we went to the store, and my mom bought me a set of the Disney sing along VHS tapes, if you're familiar with those.
Yes.
So I got like the Be Our Guest, A Friend Like Me, Bare Necessities, We Love to Laugh. And then there was one uh, video in particular, and I do apologize. I have the train behind me. We call it the
No
we
worries.
call it the hype train.
I like that name.
um, that there was one video in particular. It is the See, that's Walt. That's Walt and his train. See, I get that. And actually, not to kind of diverge off my story, but I actually do enjoy listening to that train every night because it takes me back to. I just imagine myself being on Main Street and just hearing
Mhm.
that train sign. So, it's one of those things that I always. It's a subtle thing. People think I'm probably nuts, but it's like it keeps me sane.
No, I get you. I get you. I mean, I'm so glad that the train is back at the Magic Kingdom because the Magic Kingdom isn't the same
Oh,
without.
absolutely.
And there's two sounds from Disney that I just immediately click into. One is the train, and the other is the monorail sound, and the announcement in English and Spanish. It has to be both.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. You have to have both. You have to have both. But there was one sing along videotape that looked different to me that I never really, but it caught my eye, and it was titled Disneyland Fun. And it would, on the front case, it showed Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Goofy, Pluto, but they weren't animated. They were live characters. And that was like the first time I actually saw them in that form, and they were standing in front of Sleeping Beauty Castle. And I thought, that's interesting. And as a young kid, it's like, ooh, I'm intrigued. I want to watch this. And I
Mhm.
got to listen to all my favorite Disney songs, but in Disneyland Park with the characters and the rides and the
Right.
atmosphere. And I said to my mom, I said, is this a real place? And she said, "Yeah, I believe so." And I said, "I want to go there. I am going to be destined to go there." And it's as I gotten older and what have you, then I started to distinct the differences between Disneyland and Walt Disney World. And I started
Mhm.
realizing that Walt Disney wasn't just a company name, it was a man, that created the company. So just doing a lot of research, and as I gotten older, I grew to appreciate the company as a whole for its film studio, for its theme parks, for its television. And here we are, 100 years already into the Walt Disney Company, and I'm ready for the next 100.
Wow, that's such a cool story. I gotta ask you. So, what is your favorite classic Disney movie? Live action or animated?
Hmm.
Or trick question, a mix of both, which is the deal with some of
Yes,
them.
yeah, absolutely. My Now, when you mention classic, now this goes back to the Renaissance era, because that was the era that I grew up in. My
Mhm.
all-time favorite Disney film, particularly animated, is Beauty and the Beast. Like, nothing can top Beauty and the Beast for me.
Ah.
Nothing can top Beauty and the Beast for me. Um, However, going back to the older golden age of animation, it would have to be Pinocchio, because my favorite Disney character is Jiminy Cricket.
Okay.
Just that he's that character that represents that little voice inside of all of us that's saying, when to make certain decisions, when not to make decisions. So I think that he's a character that we all can relate to, that we all have within us.
Mhm. Wow, that's great. I mean, Jiminy Cricket, he was, how would I say, like that conscience voice, but it was kind of like the one that you wanted with you to kind of tell you, should I do this? Should I not do that? And try to keep Pinocchio out of trouble, and it didn't work all too well. Kind of like we'll say like a tangent. Um, like I wasn't particularly fond of Disney's live action remake of Pinocchio.
I wasn't either.
But what I saw that made me think of the original Pinocchio was Guillermo del Toro's version of
A
Pinocchio.
lot of people have said that, and I have not yet seen that. So it's definitely a film to check out.
Oh, definitely. I mean, with Pinocchio, because as you know, one of the great things about the classic Disney films, and including the Renaissance as well, is the musical score. And the music and the songs that are in his version of Pinocchio, oh my gosh, I'm just sitting there, I'm like, I'm not gonna get into this. And I'm watching and I'm fascinated by the music and the shading and the stop motion animation. And I'm watching, and granted, it's not Jiminy Cricket's kind of like, is he a bug or a roach? One of the two, but has the same spirit as Jiminy Cricket. And I had to stop and watch that whole thing all the way through. Because with Disney, like with classic Disney, it's like the story just like pulls you in. And I just found it interesting that that version made me think of the original Pinocchio. So definitely check that out. It
You
is
have me intrigued now. I want to see
beautiful.
that now.
It's absolutely beautiful. Funny you should mention Beauty and the Beast because that's actually my mother's favorite. She
Oh,
would watch it. Mine was Aladdin from the Renaissance period.
okay.
Mine was Aladdin, but my mother liked watching Beauty and the Beast, so we would actually sit and watch it. I mean, from like a I won't say yeah, I will. From an animation standpoint, it fascinated me, that whole ballroom scene.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, that was ahead of its time. I mean,
Yes.
the blend of traditional hand-drawn animation, then mixed with some of the CGI effects. I mean, they meshed it well where it blended so well where you couldn't really distinct what was CGI and what was 2D animation. But when you would have that camera angle, when it would start at the chandelier and work all the way down, and it would circulate around
Mhm.
Belle and the Beast, you would think that that was done with a crane, that was actually like used as a live action standpoint. And that's how I always appreciated Beauty and the Beast. It was an animated film, but it was treated as if it was live action, but also in a form of Broadway style. It felt like literally I was in the theater watching a
Mhm.
live production.
Absolutely, especially with the songs who I believe was it Alan Menken?
Alan Menken,
Alan
yes, and
Menken, yeah.
Howard Ashman.
Yeah, like classic, Broadway, music score writers. I mean, the score was amazing. The songs, granted, it wasn't my favorite animation, but the songs I absolutely flippin' loved.
Well, well, here's the thing too, and it's funny that you mention Aladdin because that's the funny thing, that I just don't have one set film that I love everything about. As I had mentioned, my favorite character is Jiminy Cricket from Pinocchio.
Hmm.
My favorite all-time Disney film is Beauty and the Beast, but my all-time favorite Disney song is A Whole New World from Aladdin.
I love that song. I love that song. I love how it was animated because you see like all the clouds and everything, and it's just beautiful. And if you go to Feel Her Magic at the Magic Kingdom,
Yes.
there's two scenes that I absolutely love in that. The first one is the one where they're in London. So you're like flying with Tinkerbell and Peter
Yes.
Pan and all of them. And the second one is the Aladdin scene. It's just gorgeous.
And those are the two scenes that kind of go cohesive together. So you start
Yes.
off in the skies of London with Peter Pan, and then it transitions where you go a little bit higher above the clouds, and then that's when Aladdin and Jasmine come on the magic carpet, and then you are transported to Agrabah. But that song, I don't know, since the time that I've seen that movie in theaters, both renditions, the one actually that's performed in the film by Brad Kane and Leia Salonia, who does the singing voices for Aladdin and Jasmine, and then the end credits version with Peebo Bryson
Yes.
and Regina Bell. Oh
Brazil.
man, that was perfect. And I got the privilege to actually see Regina Bell perform that live at the D23 Expo. But
Oh my God.
unfortunately, Peebo Bryson was under the weather and he couldn't attend. And I thought, oh man, that would have been perfect to see them perform that live together because that is my all time favorite song.
Oh my gosh. I would have absolutely loved that. Aladdin was the first, I would say, Disney soundtrack that I literally had to go out and buy. And I would listen to it like over and over and over again. It was just wonderful. I loved it. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Um, yeah.
And it was the song that stayed number one on the billboards for quite some time, especially for
Yes.
it coming from an animated film.
It was insane how popular that song was, and that's one of the things that I really do appreciate about Disney in that time period. It's like the music was just as important as the story because you kind of made that association. So it's like whenever you hear that song, you're immediately thinking of what it is in the film. And even if you hadn't seen the film, just the quality of the music is,
Yeah,
you can't
and the
beat
Renaissance era for me, and not just because that was the time that I grew up in, but it was like hit after hit. It was like The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast,
it. Mhm.
Aladdin, Hunchback, Hercules, The Lion
Lion
King. It
King.
was like, yes, it was all nicely wrapped with a great big bow handed to us from Disney, and the last film, believe it or not, that I really felt that true Disney essence was
Mm.
not even part of the Renaissance era, but it had that Renaissance quality, and it was actually The Princess and the Frog. That was the last
Mm,
film that I felt had that distinct Disney fairy tale quality to it.
that's interesting. Wow. I hadn't actually thought about that. That's interesting. I think was that the last hand drawn one? It
That
was
was the last hand drawn. I mean, aside from um I think, yeah, as far as like Disney feature animation goes, that was the very last
Hmm.
one, and that was back in 2009.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I do miss traditional cell animated films. You know, I mean, I do love CGI, complete fully 100% CGI, but I do have an appreciation for the 2D animation, and I do wish that we can get back to some form of it. It doesn't have to be every single film, but just throw one in there for us, you know, for us old timers.
Yeah, because there's just something about it. I mean, I went from, let's see, I'll never forget this. I went from watching Coco, which I absolutely freaking loved that. Oh
uh,
my God. Oh, I loved
I'm
Coco.
right
That
there with you. That is actually my number one favorite Pixar film out of all of them. That's my number one.
wow. I would say for me, number one's always going to be Toy Story for nostalgic reasons, but Coco was right up there. I mean, I was just in the theater, just blown away by what it looked like and the detail that went into it and all that. It just blew my mind. So I went from watching Coco to one day saying, I haven't watched 101 Dalmatians in ages. Let me go back and watch that. And just seeing the hand-drawn animation with like all the puppies, even, Cruella de Vil's craziness, going and seeing that, to going back to probably what has to be my absolute favorite, I'll say classic Disney cartoon, and that would be Sleeping Beauty. That was like the
Yes.
ultimate favorite one, probably because Maleficent is my favorite villain. I mean,
Well,
I
and
love her.
it's funny that you mentioned both those films, Sleeping Beauty and 101 Dalmatians, because Sleeping 101 Dalmatians was made right after Sleeping Beauty. And Sleeping Beauty was the final film that was made in that kind of that traditional hand painted technicolor type of format, and especially with the paintings with from
Mary
Ivan
Blair.
Earl. I
Oh,
mean, Ivan Earl and Mary Blair, like the two of them together had that medieval gothic type of style. And it was like,
yes.
it set that film set everything apart. It was nothing like Cinderella, it was nothing like Snow White. Sleeping Beauty had its own distinct animation to it. And then when you move to 101 Dalmatians, a lot of people like right off of Sleeping Beauty and they're like, "Oh, what kind of happened to that animation?" Because it kind of went to that photo copy type of animation. And
Mhm.
but I still enjoy 101 Dalmatians because I feel like that type of animation fits that style of story. And I think that's where the animators were going with it, but it kind of lost in translation when it just came off of Sleeping Beauty and then
Mhm.
went into that kind of animation.
Yeah, because they are somewhat different. It's like with Sleeping Beauty, that's like a fairy tale, very gothic look, lots of fantasy. And on One Dalmatians, you got a bunch of dogs running around.
Yes.
You have a bunch of dogs running around, and I just thought I thought it fit well with just the story and in the spirit in which it was told. But it's still my favorite, one of my favorites. That one, along with the original live action, the one with Glenn Close, 101 Dalmatians.
Yes. Yes. If there's anyone that can portray a good Cruella Deville live action, it's Glenn Close.
Oh God, yeah.
Like she just like knocked that performance. I mean, to me, I mean, I may sound a bit far fetched from this, but I think that she deserved an Oscar nomination for that role because it was like she just had that in depth that she could be sarcastic, she could be funny, but yet she had this really dark, strict demeanor about her, but she did it with such elegance. It was like it was perfect.
I loved it. I loved it watching it. It's just like, is she really serious? Just the way that she would portray Cruella de Vil is that perfect, just are they really going to do that type of villain? But you're right. I do believe she. I hadn't thought about it like that, but yes, that was an Oscar worthy performance
And and
through and
and
through.
I really think, because a lot of people have been having discussions about, like, in the industry, of why a lot of popular franchises or popular films or popular characters or people or actors who are portraying these characters, why they're not being acknowledged by the Academy, as to why they're not even just nominated. It's always about these films that maybe people aren't too familiar with, which, not saying that they're not great films, but let's also focus on films that are very popular in the pop culture. And I feel like the live action 101 Dalmatians is one of them.
Absolutely, absolutely. The Academy seems to focus on how did I put this in another stream? They kind of poo poo the popular selections unless it becomes something that they absolutely 100%, can't ignore. Because
Yeah.
for the longest time, Spielberg wasn't getting any nominations or anything like
No.
that. So yeah, it's a shame. I wish they would, but maybe one day the Academy will evolve. Which brings me to another question that I'll ask you. And I blanked out just that fast. So we were speaking of live action. We'll say from the Renaissance
Mhm.
time period of Disney. How would you compare that to the live action that Disney has been doing of late?
Well, I feel like that there are three different kind of sections for live action speaking. Like, there is the classic traditional live action that was back in the golden age when Walt Disney was around, or right after, maybe soon after his death. You have Mary Poppins, you have Bed Knobs
Mm-hmm.
and Broomsticks, you have Pete's Dragon, that kind of blended animation with live action, or even and without the animation, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, The Parent Trap with Haley Mills, Pollyanna. Like, those are all classics. Like, those are the live actions that I adore in the Disney film collection. Then you move into as you had mentioned, the Renaissance era, where you would have the live action 101 Dalmatians. You would have Flubber with Robin Williams. You would
Mm-hmm.
have um Airbud, and so I still enjoyed those type of quality uh Disney films, even though some of them I would still prefer in the older times, than the
Mm-hmm.
Renaissance. But they were traditional, but they still held their own. And they did it in a way where it was an adaptation of something, but it was original. It was something. And then you move into today's live action, and I feel like they are just taking animated films just for the sake of the almighty dollar, because they know that it'll get people's butts in the seats. And
Mm-hmm.
no matter how the story goes, they can come up with something so far fetched, something so bizarre, something so out there, but they'll put the title in front of that as, oh, it being this from this animated feature film, and people will go because they're like, oh, it's the animated film, but it's live action. Now, mind you, there have been some live action Disney films as of late that I did enjoy. I did enjoy the live action Jungle Book. I did enjoy the live action Beauty and the Beast. i
I
i enjoyed those.
I did with Jungle Book. Beauty and the Beast, not so much, but Jungle Book definitely. And I think it had more to do with the director, who was John Favreau.
Favreau.
I think it
Yes.
had a lot to do with him because I the Jungle Book was a book that I had, and it was one that I read, and I saw like the original animated cartoon. I loved that. So between that and reading the book, and then when I saw the live action, I was just like, wow, I feel like I'm actually in the book.
And the way Favreau captured that film, he took the essence from the animated film, but he also took from the pages of the Kipling novel, and it kind of had that rustic origin type of
Mhm.
in deep in India with the ancient ruins and what have you, but he made it to where it kind of all blended in together. So I have to say, out of all the live actions, that one for me was like top notch, grade A plus.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. I so enjoyed watching that one. I so did. Beauty and the Beast, it was okay.
I think what kind of ruined that for me was a lot of the auto tune when it came to the singing. Like you can really tell, like it was
Mhm.
it didn't have that organic natural feeling when you hear someone singing on screen. It was
Right.
like it literally felt like they took the audio cassette that they record in the studio, took it to the set and hit play and put the microphone on it.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
was like the one thing that I had an issue with that film.
Yeah. Yeah, I was because I was like, something just there's just something that's missing from it, and I couldn't really put my finger on it. The costumes were beautiful. They were absolutely beautiful. I love those. But it's like it just didn't have the same, feel. Like there's the
Mhm.
opening song, that Belle sings when she's going into the village, and it's quite possibly my favorite song from the animated cartoon, where you get to get introduced to all of the people in the village and everything, and it didn't have that kind of like lilting excitement in it like it did with
Yeah.
the animated feature. That kind of let me down a little bit.
And I think too that was a film that when the studio started kind of going in a direction that to sustain a certain type of audience, and they
Mhm.
were starting to throw things in there little by little, and I feel like to focus more on that, it hurt the story because they kind of made that take the back seat than to
Yeah,
kind of
I agree.
push more of those notions.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Another one, not that I'm beating up on live action, but just to kind of show the distinction. The Lion King, I freaking love the Lion King
uh,
animated movie. I loved Lion King 2. I think that was directed DVD. I don't care.
yes,
I love that one.
I'm right there with you. I did too. I enjoyed the songs in Lion King too.
I
Love
did.
will find a way. Like that
Mhm.
is me and my wife. We love that song. Like that was like anytime we listen to that song, we say that's us. It's like, and then you have the Inupendi. Where it's like you have that comical romance between
Mhm.
Kiara and Kovu, and it was like. Yeah, direct the video or not, it was still a great story, and I thought it was a nice continuation of the original. But the live action, if you could even really call it that, I mean, it's that one I think I had the most problem with because I had such a higher standard for that film. And I
Mhm.
thought that was like really going to knock it out of the park. And I thought, no, the Jungle Book still has it, still is Reign King. No pun intended.
No, absolutely. Like I even enjoyed Lion King 1.5. I did not think I was gonna like that. And oh my gosh, I was watching it with my nephews and we're just like on the floor dying, laughing, watching this thing. And then watching the live action one, it was just like the soul of the Lion King isn't there
Mm-mm.
in that
Yeah.
one, and it's like you're using animals but like with CGI manipulation, and it's just, if you just muted the soundtrack it would just look like something from National Geographic or Wild Kingdom or something like that.
Yes, exactly.
There's just things that you can do in animation that you cannot do in live action. And when you're talking about animals like that and the way that the story is and their expressions, you can't really capture that in live action. So it's like even though you heard James Earl Jones's voice, it was kind of like it's
It
just
wasn't the
yeah.
same.
No, it
It
wasn't.
didn't have and and honestly, you know, he's up in the age, and when he goes, I'm sorry, No one. I don't care how much that they try to make a rendition.
Mhm.
James Earl Jones is Mufasa. James Earl Jones is Darth Vader. Point
Yes,
blank. That's it.
absolutely. 100%. 100%. So I'm gonna switch actually over to parks. So
All
tell us
right.
about your experience in the Disney parks.
So I, being on the East Coast, I have the privilege to making a lot more frequent trips to Walt Disney World over Disneyland because I have to go cross country. But recently, I've been going over to Disneyland more often. I just got back about a month ago. I went out for the grand opening of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway and the kickoff of the 100th anniversary of the company. So I that was really
Wow.
cool that I got to, be amongst the a lot of the YouTubers and the content creators, and it was for for actually all three of us, for me and my brothers, Orange Grove 55 and Mr. Vash Sky, that
Right.
we got to experience it together, and it was so surreal that normally we're usually the ones on the other side of the fence, so to speak, where we approach people, say, "Oh, I love your channel, I love your work, I love your content." Where we were having people come up to us, recognizing us, and it was such a humbling experience to know that we in the Disney community are making a difference, that people are listening, people are paying attention, people are watching. And that's all that we try to do is with the Orange Grove 55 network, is that we really try to just do something a little different, do something out of the box that a lot of people may not. They think about those types of topics and discussions, but they don't really like to talk about it. So it's like we do the discussion for them and they get to listen in. And if they want to participate, then it's all, we welcome it. And so we got to experience that while being in the midst of Disneyland. It's like, how can you not pass that opportunity up? And but yeah, each time I go to the parks, it's always something different. Whether I'm going to Walt Disney World or Disneyland, not one trip or one day in the park is the same as the last. And that's what's so unique about Disney and about the parks, is you can have that expectation to say, "Oh, well, I had this experience last time. I'll probably have it the same way." But it becomes greater. It becomes a different experience, but in a different aspect, and that's the best thing that you could actually get out of going to a Disney park.
Wow. Yeah, I'm so jealous y'all were there for the 100. I so am. Because we had the 50th at Walt Disney World, and
Yeah.
yeah, it kind of
Yeah.
went over like a lead balloon. It's so
Yeah.
disappointing because even before I moved here, when I heard about the 50th, I'm like, oh, I have to be there for the 50th. How awesome would it be, to be there for it? And I was like, well, that Tron ride's coming up. That's probably going to be open by the 50th.
Yeah.
And I happened to move down here and I'm like, I'm going to be here for the 50th. It's great. And then it kicks off and I'm just like, no, not really.
Yeah.
Not really all that great, which is a shame. I
And
was almost like, well, maybe we should bring back the Nailed It Castle for the 25th anniversary.
yes.
They had to, me and my
Yes.
sister call it the Nailed It Castle.
Uh, I called it the giant Pepto Bismol bottle. So it was like but yeah, I mean, anything I think would have been better than what they, and I get it. They were just coming out of a situation that no one predicted, no one. So I get that their resources were limited,
Hmm.
but it was just the approach and the execution that
Yeah.
it fumbled. Disney could not get it together with this celebration, and with it being a milestone celebration for Walt Disney World, you would expect, I would have appreciated for them just to do something small and hold off on the celebration and kind of wean it in later on, but at least it would have been a much bigger celebration than just kind of throw merchandise and these gaudy banners and stuff all over the place.
Yeah.
Because I was actually tempted to fly down just for the day
Hmm.
on October 1st, when it kicked off, just to say that I was in the Magic Kingdom. And I was unfortunate I didn't get to make it, but I can't say unfortunate because I watched the live stream and boy, was it a mess. I mean, the line to get into the Emporium
Mm-hmm.
was longer than the line for Space Mountain.
Yes.
And it was like people were fighting, they were arguing with cast members, people got hurt over merchandise. It was, yes, that right
Except
there.
it was the blue one.
Yes, it was
Except it was
blue.
the blue one. And I'm just like, are you serious? It's just a tumbler.
Yeah.
But going back to what you were saying, yeah, I didn't like the merchandising, I guess,
It was a
hardcore
gimmick.
full
It
court
was a
press.
gimmick.
Exactly, exactly. It was a gimmick. Like I like the idea of bringing back some of the old school um souvenirs, like the old school print shirts from like the 70s, like
Mhm.
laminated park maps. I'm thinking things, like that, like attraction posters, maybe like special editions,
That
something.
it would take you back into the day when the park first opened. It's like, give us that
Exactly.
nostalgia. That's what we were looking for.
Exactly. And it just seemed like we just have this merchandise, Starbucks cups, get this, get that. It just seems like everything they could do to slap a 50th anniversary thing on it. That's what they did. And it's like it got to the point where it's just like I'm just tired of all of this just like endless march of merchandise as opposed to giving us a beautiful 50th anniversary version of the fireworks show. You
And
know,
I'm glad that you actually brought that up because I got to see Enchantment in person. And that, I have to say, unfortunately, was the most underwhelming Disney fireworks show that I have ever seen. And then I kind of lost hope in the Disney fireworks shows because I thought, is this now going to be the new norm, so to speak, for the fireworks moving forward? Are these just going to be this kind of partially done, same film, same songs, just mixed in with projections and fireworks?
mhm.
And I was starting to lose hope until I went out to Disneyland and I got to see Wondrous Journeys for the 100th anniversary. And I tell you what, this fireworks show, me me and Vash, we were standing there. Well, for OG contacted us and he said, I'm not a crier, but I teared up watching this on a YouTube video. And we just looked at each other and thought, okay, we got to see this fireworks show. And so we're standing there, two grown men, and we're bawling our eyes out with this show. And I thought, this is what it's about. This is what that kiss goodnight from Walt meant at the end
Mhm.
of each theme park day. And
Yes.
it was perfect. So I'm not sure if you did get a little glimpse of Wondrous Journeys
Yes.
on our live show that we did together, but if you have the opportunity to see it in person, I guarantee you will not be disappointed. And Mr. Vash Sky and our friend of the channel, Theme Park Wizard, interviewed the man behind the show as far as with the music and everything, Christopher Lenert. So if you have an opportunity to check out that interview, it's a really interesting take on his aspects of how he was able to create a show like that.
Wow. I mean, just from what I saw, and I think Vash brought up some of either he did or Theme Park Casual did on our last Theme Park Geeks and
Hmm.
Divas show. I think you
I
were
think it
on that
was,
one.
yeah, I think it was Theme Park Casuals
Yeah,
video
his
footage.
video. And I'm watching it and I'm just like, there is a stark difference between this. I have not seen Enchantment because it was bad enough that I had to watch Harmonious the first night that it came out.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just like, what did I just watch? Because I live streamed.
You have, I think, the same reaction that I did, that my family did. I think after everyone has watched Harmonious, it's like you stand back and you're like, what did I just witness? I don't get it. I don't, there's no connection there as far as I
No.
had a better connection with Epcot Forever. I mean, it was like I'd rather take that. I mean, surely I've had a connection with Illuminations. Like that to me was like
Oh, heck
the,
yeah.
the the creme de la creme of every Epcot
Yes,
night.
it was. Yes, it was. I mean, Harmonious, I'm watching this and I'm just like, I don't know what this is. I don't quite get it. My viewers are just like, where is this going? I'm like, I have no idea.
It's
And
like
just, I'm
it
sorry.
like you don't know which way it's going. It has a mind of its own. You might as well should just call it hormonal us. I mean, it was like completely. It was like literally. It was. It was a nighttime show like on hormones because it was like you didn't know the storyline. You didn't know which direction. What were they representing? It's like, and then you have these gigantic robotic arms that are just
Waving all over the
yeah,
place
and you
and
have to be in a certain area to be able to get that full
yes,
effect.
because if you're not immediately right in front of, I call it the Stargate. So if
Yeah.
you're not in front of that, where World Gateway is, or if you're watching, you have to be watching like right where the American Adventure is. Everywhere else is lousy. And with Epcot Forever and Illuminations, it didn't matter where you were around the World Showcase Lagoon, you had the perfect view of the
Mhm.
fireworks. And with Harmonious, actually, my thumbnail guy CJ, he's a graphic artist. He's like, there's so much visual vomit in this. I can't. I can't. He's like, I can't pay attention. And then one part of the fireworks show that I thought just might redeem itself. You hear the beginnings of the song of Reflection from Mulan, right?
Right.
The pivotal song in that animated feature that is just amazing, especially with Christina Aguilera singing it. I'm thinking I'm going to hear Christina Aguilera. No,
No.
no, we didn't get her. And I'm just like, if you guys couldn't get that right, I can't even think about what the rest of the show is like. And people were just like, I don't know what I saw. I have no idea what this is. And then we're walking out, and the LED lights on Spaceship Earth start activating.
Mhm.
And that's when we saw the first LED show. I called it like the Epcot Kiss Goodnight or whatever.
Mhm.
People were more enthralled by that
I
and the
was.
music score
I
than
was. It
Harmonious.
was like I would stand there in front of Spaceship Earth while Harmonious is going on, and it's like I'm standing here waiting for the real show because, as you had mentioned, with any show, whether it's a fireworks show, a nighttime show, a live production, a parade, the show has to grab its audience at the very beginning. It has to come out swinging. Otherwise, if you lose them in the beginning, it is going to be so difficult to carry them through the whole show. And that's what Harmonious lacked was that grasping of the audience attention.
Absolutely, absolutely. It just didn't do that. And speaking of fireworks, because for a while it was just like Disney does not know what the heck they're doing with fireworks. So I happened to go to the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party last year. It was the first time that I got to go. The year previously, I went to the Boo Bash, which was such a freaking disaster with no fireworks, except of course during the Wu Tang Flip. So they do the fireworks show, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is crazy. They do know how to do a
Mm-hmm.
fireworks show because there's a cohesive story. They bring out the Jack Skellington puppet, and people lose their minds, and there's an actual storyline. The fireworks line up exactly with the storyline. And I'm just like, they know how to do
Mm-hmm.
fireworks. So I'm
Yeah,
like,
so
what's
it's
the
like,
deal with
why
enchantment?
is it going this back and forth, hit and miss?
Yeah.
Obviously you know how to do it, so it's like do it well every single time. Like, why are you? Forgive me for putting it in this matter, half-assing certain things. It's like go to your full ability because we know you could do it.
You know you can do it, and everybody knows. It's like when you go to Disney, because that's something that I heard, I believe, an Imagineer talk about with Walt's idea for Walt Disney World. It's just like how amazing to cap off your visit with an extremely over the top fireworks show. And I remember as a kid, like, I'm waiting for this fireworks show because it is the sickest thing that I have ever seen, with so many colors and so many things going on. And if you're fortunate enough to, or maybe unfortunate enough because of the congestion, to be there on 4th of July and New Year's Eve, and I've done both, it is even more insane. It's just like, that's the level that you expect, when you go to Disney. And for them to, exactly like you say, half-ass it, it's like, it really is a huge disservice.
Yes. And it's a disappointment because we know Disney has high standards and we hold them to those high standards. So it's like any time that they were to drop the ball, and we know things are imperfect in life. You can't have a grand slam all the time, but when
Right.
you don't put that best foot forward and you are kind of, and I hate using this term, lazy about it, it's like it shows in your final product. And
Hmm.
it's like, you're better than that. We know you're better than that
Yeah,
because we've seen it.
we've seen it. I remember as a kid, we'd have like, fire, like 4th of July fireworks, local fireworks, and just like, this isn't like Disney World, that was
Yes.
that was the bar, that was set. So I'm glad they're getting rid of enchantment. They're getting rid of harmonious, and I really do hope that they get back to that, because that was just yet another thing that makes the Disney difference, when you go
Mhm.
and you see a fireworks show like you've never seen in your life.
And honestly, speaking of a very unique experience of a Disney fireworks show, is I don't know if you have ever had the opportunity to, but taking a Disney cruise.
I haven't
And
yet. Oh wait, I'm sorry. The Disney cruise from the port terminal, or the fireworks cruise at the parks?
it's actually a little bit of both. It's like you go, oh, no, you actually go on the Disney cruise ship, on
Okay,
Disney
yeah, I
Cruise Line.
have done that. Yes.
Okay, so like when you go on a Disney ship and they have Pirate Night, and
Mm-hmm.
you watch the fireworks from on top of the deck. I mean, like how. I mean, that's just on a whole nother level that Disney. You could say Disney did it again. If Disney can convince the uh, the Coast Guard that we can do these fireworks and it won't be a hazard to the ocean
Mm-hmm.
or the sea life below. If they can convince the Coast Guard that we can have fireworks aboard our cruise ships, they can withstand nothing. There is no excuse as to why they can't have spectacular fireworks at their parks.
Exactly. 100%. 100%. Oh, so you've been on Mickey's Runaway Railway, both at Hollywood Studios and in Disneyland. How did the two compare?
So for both of them, there wasn't really too much of a difference. There were some scene elements, very subtle. You have to actually look for them. For instance, when you are moving from the underwater scene and you move into like the sewage pipe, so to speak, and you go
Uh-huh.
out onto the streets where Pete is using like construction and everything, that if you look to your left at the Disneyland version, you could see Pluto, and he's kind of moving along through the tubes in the sewers. But at the Walt
Oh.
Disney World version, they don't have that. So it's like little subtle things here or there. Then, of course, I don't know if they had fixed the issue, but like at the very end, um, they have the picnic scene at the very end where Mickey, Minnie, and Pluto are sitting
Mhm.
atop the hill and they're singing. With Walt Disney World, it is on the left side. If you look to the left, they're having their little picnic. To Disneyland, it's to the right, but they have Goofy facing the left side because it's the same, I guess, the same type of systematic from Walt Disney World that they were
Right.
using. So now they have to do is just kind of flip it. So Goofy is not looking at the wall, and he's
Mhm.
actually looking at Mickey and Minnie. But I have noticed, and we had little subtleties um during this, but I've seen a lot of glitches within the
Hmm.
screen system at Disneyland, for which
Oh.
I like you would actually see like I think someone posted it on Twitter that during the factory scene, I believe it was the factory
Oh,
scene.
Pete was glitching.
Yes,
I saw that.
it was like, and then you kind of see like the server up at the top of the sky, and it's saying malfunction, reading error, and it's like you're looking at this gigantic computer screen. It's like, whoa, did that just throw you right out of the story?
Woo! Wow.
So,
My
I mean,
goodness.
but as far as the queue goes,
Mhm.
Disneyland has knocked it out of the park with the queue line. I mean, it just fits perfect in Toontown.
Mhm.
With the El Capitan Theater, you get to see a lot of scenes that pay homage to Mickey Mouse, like the his Sorcerer's Apprentice outfit from Fantasia. You see the beanstalk kind of growing from the ground, and it breaks into the ceiling from Mickey and the Beanstalk, and you just see the Prince and the Pauper outfits they have on display. And
Oh,
it's perfect. I honestly I would stand in line just to do the queue, minus doing the ride. I would just stand in line just to go through the queue.
wow. I mean, because as you know, the one at Disney World, it's basically the Great Movie Ride, which they overhauled. In a way, I kind of won't miss it because I wanted them to update that attraction. It's like swapping some new things. I'd say new old things, like just some of the scenes, like, go maybe change it up with a different older gangster movie or something like that. Add a couple more, like, more up to date movie references, because I think the last scene that they had was from Alien, and that movie was,
Yes.
79. So it kind of felt dated, and it's yeah, I wasn't really sad to see it go. S-
Now, me, I still have a little bit of a bitter side for that because I did enjoy that ride. It screamed to me that classic MGM type of
Mhm.
vibe when I went as a child. It was the first attraction that opened with the park. I do agree with you though. I think that if they were to have continued adding new old scenes from classic films and kind of keeping it fresh and up to date, I think people would have been more into it. And I think they just kind of relied on their laurels to just say, let's just leave it the way it is.
Yeah.
It kind of went a little bit out of date. It went stale for the audience. But for me, it would always stay classic. But you have to look at the general audience and what they would be appealed to. So that's where, but I do wish that Walt Disney World would get out of the habit of, because they have the blessing of size, they have enough room. It's like rather than keep on replacing something, it's like let's expand, let's add, let's grow. Like let's stop with this certain amount of room. Okay, let's just take this out and put this in just to save that time and effort. And I wish Disney would kind of get out of that mentality.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. Because there's two things that Disney did redo or take over at Walt Disney World that they're on my short list for. The first one would be Snow White's Scary Adventures.
Mhm. I agree with you.
I loved
100%.
that. Loved it.
100%. And I get that they were putting in the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, but to remove a ride for another meet and greet that you could basically put anywhere, you can have the princesses meeting anywhere in Fantasyland, and you're going to take a whole
Anywhere.
entire show building that can withhold a classic dark ride and just use that as standing room just to wait in line is it's almost sacrilege.
Oh, it purely is. It purely is. I mean, Seven Doors Mine Train, I was just like, I don't know why anybody would wait an hour and a half to 2 hours for that. I found the ride underwhelming. I found the storyline, it felt like part of the story was missing. And I was actually talking with, of course, friends of the channel, Culture Casino, who's also at my theme park show, and he was
Nice.
saying that there's a portion of the story that is missing, which is why it feels so disconnected. And with Snow White's Scary Adventures, it's like they retold the whole story, and it was awesome with the effects. I love the scene where first, you see the evil queen, and then you're turning around, and then she turns around and she's like the old
She's the
hag.
old hag. Yes, I love that effect. And honestly, especially what they did over at Disneyland because they transformed it into Snow White's Enchanted Wish. So like with even better technological advances to the ride. So they could have even added that to Walt Disney World's version. And unfortunately, they can't because the whole entire ride was taken out. And it's funny that you mentioned about the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, about it missing a scene, because it also goes to the same aspect for Slinky Dog Dash. A lot of scenes were taken out of that. A lot of characters were taken out of Slinky Dog Dash. And that's why the ride is still a great ride. I still enjoy Slinky Dog for the kind of like that butterfly in your stomach type of feel.
Yeah, uh-huh.
But it lacks that the connection of what the ride was about, and that's because due to budget cuts they cut down the ride. The track layout got shorter. They took out
Mm.
some character interactions that it was supposed to take place on the ride, and it's like whatever Disney introduces to us in the concept art, it's like by the end period of when the product is actually finished, it's like nothing like the initial concept that they give us.
Yeah, it's
And
yeah,
then what was the
it's
second one for you? So the first one
this
was Snow White.
oh, the second one I've been pissed for years about, and that is the removal of Mr. Toad's
Mr.
Wild
Toad.
Ride.
I kind of figured that one was gonna. Yeah, I.
Oh, I just want to egg the Winnie the Pooh ride every time I walk past it because that attraction, it's like I rode it with my parents, I rode it with my grandparents, I rode it with my college friends. It was just one of those, I call it cheesy attractions, but it was just fun. The
Isn't it
physical
something that when
jokes.
they want to take out something significant to us Disney fans, they replace it with Winnie the Pooh? Because they also did that at Disneyland with the Country Bears, and they replaced it with Winnie the Pooh. So it's like no matter what, and it's like replace it with Pooh, and that's exactly what they did. They put in Pooh.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. So Disneyland still has Mr. Toad, which I got to ride in years ago. So
Yes.
it's like, okay, please do not let this get taken out. But we still have the Country Bears, which is it's so much fun.
Oh, it
I
is. I
I
love the
I
Country Bears.
I freaking love it. Every time I go in there, I love it, even though I get copyright claimed every time I try to live stream it. Freaking Sherman Brothers. But when I show it, like a lot of my viewers will say, "Wow, there's no screens. That's
Nope.
just animatronics, great music, and just a funny script."
It's one of those shows that it takes you back to those old-fashioned themed amusement parks, that it was like everything was done right there in front of you. As you had mentioned, there's no screens, there's no technical advancements. It's basically the old tradition, classic audio animatronics, and it's like you shut the curtain, turn the turnstile, bring more audio animatronics up. It was like it's the perfect, nice little show to just kind of sit in, cool down, and just
Yeah.
have a good laugh, and you know tap your knee, slap your knee, tap your feet. It's like it makes you want to get into the show with the Bears, and it's and I love the little gag jokes throughout the show too, the little one liners.
Oh, yeah. They're fabulous. I love that attraction for so many reasons. And yeah, and it's still popular. It's like it moves a lot of people. I tell people, you want to get out of the heat, go
Go
to
see it.
Country Bears.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, because there's very far places in between to go in now, to get air conditioned. You have the Country Bear Jamboree, you have, excuse me, the Enchanted Tiki Room. You have
Mhm.
Mickey's Philhar Magic. So there's a few places you could still go in where you
Mhm.
can kind of cool off, where you don't have to wait in an exorbitant big line.
Especially the Hall of Presidents, man. You can take a nap through several
Oh,
shows
yes, yes.
in that one.
And we do. It's like we purposely will go in there. It's like, okay, the heat's kind of getting to us. Let's take a little 15-minute nap. Let's rejuvenate, because it's a show that I'm not really missing anything. It's
No, no. I think the only time I found something interesting about that show was at one time we came out and they actually had the Muppets do like this little show.
out on the by where like the Liberty Tree Tavern
Yes.
was, and all. Yes, I loved. Me personally, and I think this would be beneficial, I think, to Disney, just because the way that the world is changing, would have you, and there's so many different sides to people's different perspectives of politics and what have you. I think honestly, kind of pull that out, keep the Liberty Square aspect of it, but make that whole theater the Muppets, make them do like a zany, wacky type of patriotic show. It's like Sam the Eagle is like host, and it's like,
Mhm.
pay tribute to all the countries, especially, the American one. It's like, throw in those Muppet gags, it would be perfect.
It's so would. I mean, when you go over to Muppet Vision, Muppets 3D,
Hmm.
never fail to laugh from when you get there to all the sight gags in the queue to, the pre-show that they give you to the
And I
actual
love how
show.
they still kept it as that classic original Muppets. Like, as especially because that was the last time that Jim Henson kind of had his hands
Mhm.
on the frog, no pun intended.
Literally,
So
yeah.
it was, so you felt that connection, that presence of the creator of the Muppets of its entirety. So I'm glad, in a sense, they kept the show as its original state.
Yeah. I'm just mad they took out the Muppets gift shop because
Yes, yeah.
oh, they would have great stuff in there. You could get
Mhm.
the comics, you could get, swag, you could get, your Electric Mayhem tour shirt.
Yeah, and it's like Disney usually is all about branding and selling merchandise, so as why they took that out, I is beyond me. Because
Yeah.
I've enjoyed that shop. I've always, even if there were times I didn't even really buy anything, I just went in there just to look around, just to see what they added new to it. And because you would see like subtlety, like just the way that the shop was designed, it had this zany Muppet quality to
Mhm.
it, and
Yeah.
it was perfect.
Yeah, the day we found out, because my sister and I had taken a trip to Disney, and we were just like, "Yeah, we can't wait to get to the Muppet store. We can't wait." And we get there, and it was closed, like
Mm.
permanently. And we were just like, I cannot believe this happened. Ugh. It's a shame. It's a missed opportunity because there's still such a market, for the Muppets, and that attraction is so much fun.
And I think that if they showcase the Muppets more, Disney would be surprised of how how fans would take to the Muppets. And honestly, I think it might have been you that suggested it, that if they ever were to kind of retheme Rock and Roller Coaster, you could always retheme it to the Electrical Mayhem. And just kind of have this wacky coaster where you're traveling along with Dr. Teeth and the band.
Oh, yeah. That would be oh my gosh, that would be so much fun. That'd be so much fun if they did that. Oh, well, our last topic before we wrap up. First of all, how did you get into YouTube and connected with OG 55?
Oh, yes. So I've always wanted to kind of dabble into the community, like with social media and talk about Disney, but I didn't really know what approach that I would take because I didn't want to step on any toes. I didn't want to upset Disney, of copyright infringements and how I was going to go about doing it. So I kind of just left it be, and I would watch different content creators and them going into the parks and showing their daily life of like living as a Florida resident or a California resident, and just kind of absorbing it in. And I was just checking out different YouTube channels, and I came across Orange Grove 55, and what I find it fascinating was he brought us into his domain, his territory, his
Mm-hmm.
home. And it's like he was very warm and welcoming, inviting us in. It's like, okay, I'm gonna talk some Disney with you guys. And how he would sit and honestly look into the camera. And it's like, okay, he's talking directly to me. And he's talking about subject matter that intrigued me, that it was stuff that I wanted to know, stuff that I wanted to hear about, that it's not
Mm-hmm.
that typical, oh, I'm going to the parks and this is my favorite dessert or this is my favorite snack, and it's like everybody and their grandmother is doing that, so I wanted some edgier kind of topics to talk about, but still keep that Disney quality. So I followed him literally from the very beginning, from his first video that he made talking about Mission Breakout, of the transformation from the Tower of Terror to
Mm-hmm.
Mission Breakout. And I would comment on his videos. I'd get some likes, some thumbs up, and what have you. And he did some Q&A videos, and he said if anyone has any questions, um, write to me either in the comments down below, or you can follow me on Twitter, which I have been already following him on Twitter. So I sent him a question, and I think it was about the animated film Gigantic that it was in production, which no longer is. And it was
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be set in Spain, which was supposed to then give us a Spain pavilion at Epcot with the Gigantic franchise surrounding that. So when the
Mm-hmm.
film got the boot, so did the Spain pavilion. So that was my question to him, and he answered it, and he actually got my name right because my last name is like sometimes it can be kind of hard to pronounce. But he was actually one of the very first people that actually pronounced it correctly. And so I would just talk to him back and forth. And I was on a Disney podcast, and during the holidays, we came up with the notion, let's invite one of our favorite uh, social media influencers or YouTube. And I invited Orange Grove to come on the podcast and talk a little bit about himself, and he gladly did so. And we just kind of went back and forth, and then I would guest star on his show. We'd talk about Disney, and then I got introduced to Mr. Vash Sky, who he had on as a guest. And
Uh,
then he became permanent on Orange Grove with Freshly Squeezed. And then OG asked me, well, since you're a Walt Disney World guy, to have that different perspective, how about we give you a segment on the show? And the three of us just kind of I mean, this was OG's channel and it's still his channel. He started from scratch, and Vash and I are just so overwhelmingly humbled to even be a part of his channel, and to kind of, for the three of us just to kind of banter back and forth and like do this like round table discussion every week. And it's just been a lot of fun, and the channel keeps on growing, keeps on adapting, and that's what we're shooting for. And we're just so appreciated of all the people that have now become part of the OG 55 community, and you included. So we greatly appreciate you.
well, thank you. Thank you. I mean, when OG was like, "Hey, I want to bring you on my channel," I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." Because I'd seen him mostly on Twitter,
Hmm.
within the Diz Twitter kind of like community. So I kind of met him there, and he's like, "Oh, you're gonna come on my channel, it'd be great." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. I'd love to do that," and had an absolutely fabulous time. So they have such a great thing, or you guys have such a great thing going on there, And I was just, just really humbled when I'm like, well, do you want to come on like my theme park show? We do it once a month. Of course, now we do it twice a month because there's just too much stuff that we
Yes.
that we wind up talking about. Because I came up with that format because it was kind of like a counterbalance to being in the parks. So it's like I do the park streams where I'm kind of out and about and pointing out things and showing stuff and showing people what the parks are like, and all that. Here's my favorite disrespectful snack that I do not need to buy, but I'm
Of
going to
course.
buy it. Or, ooh, look, lounge five purse. Okay, I shouldn't go over there. I shouldn't go over there. Hey guys, look, monorail's not running today. All right, we're gonna take this, that, and the other thing. But then also having like a roundtable show where we just kind of sit down and we
Yes.
just kind of discuss and talk. So I thought that was cool that we had the same format.
Yeah, and that's what I appreciate about your channel is I do love how you kind of blend both together where you are out on location, you showcase, this is what's going on today. This is but then you also bring it back home, so to speak, and it's like, okay, now let's talk about it. Let's, invite people on, let's discuss it. And I love that interaction. And I love how you kind of mesh both of them together, have like the best of both worlds. And also theme park casual does that as well, and
Yeah.
I love that kind of format.
Well, thank you. And it was just so cool because OG's like, yeah, want to bring Disney George on too, if that's okay. I'm like, of course it's okay. Of course it's okay. So,
Well, I'm glad
we
that you had me on your live, and I'm glad you invited me on here to discuss Disney, and I can't wait to do it in the future moving
oh,
forward.
absolutely, absolutely. So, folks, what I want you to do is please do, if you are on Twitter, go and follow Disney George over there on Twitter. Any other social media that you're on for people to
Yeah,
know
so
about?
you can check me out on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23. Right now, it's kind of in a hiatus right now. I still have videos up there, but that's going to strictly be videos that I'm going to be on location with.
Okay.
So definitely check this. Oh, that was like one of my older videos. Wow, that's impressive.
Ooh.
but um but yeah, so so
That's so
definitely
cute.
check out my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23. There's going to be more content added to that. As you had mentioned, Lorena, you could find me and interact with me on Twitter at Disney George. You could also check out a new podcast I'm part of called A Walk with Walt, which is on iTunes. Um, I think a couple other things that I'm drawing a blank right now, but I know it's on Apple iTunes, I believe.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And then of course you can find me on my home base with Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, and joining Mr. Orange Grove 55 himself, Mr. Vaskai, and myself to talk about some sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Especially this one right here.
Yeah.
Of course, it's an ad right now. I'm gonna have to
Yes.
scrub that one out eventually.
Yes. That let's see. This is oh yes, this is the one where we talked about that there's no absolutely no room for Pandora at Disneyland. And then of course Zootopia possibly coming to Disney's Animal Kingdom, which I uh I still strongly believe in some odd shape or form it's coming to Animal Kingdom.
Uh, yeah, I have such I kind of have mixed feelings about it because it is around animals. On the surface, it does, in a way fit in. But at the same time, I'm like, do we really want to stick another Disney IP kind of in there? Because in
Just
in
for
a
the sake of
way, just exactly just for the sake of doing it, like they kind of They did that with Pandora. Um, I didn't like Avatar, so I didn't really care about Pandora. And then went over there and experienced it, and I'm like, this is absolutely amazing. But at the same time, again, it's another, not that it's an IP that they owned, but they brought it in there, and it kind of opened the gate, I want to say, to bring in just other IPs
Hmm.
willy nilly. And to me, it kind of diminishes the spirit of the Animal Kingdom Park, because that is one of
Hmm.
the most innovative
Yes,
parks
it,
that
it
I have
is.
ever
I
been
feel
to.
like it's the most unique Disney theme park that's ever made. And I
Absolutely.
feel like that it was because it was spearheaded by former Imagineer Joe Rohde. He
Yes.
created that park of how it was intended. And being that he is now unfortunately not with the company, and Bob Iger clearly stated Expedition Everest was going to be the last non IP attraction. And they're pretty much IP driven, that like anything now that goes in, it is going to be straight on full-fledged IP. And he even mentioned that in the quarterly earnings after talking to Josh D'Amaro early that morning. It's like, okay, well, we're doing Toy Story 5, Frozen 3, and Zootopia 2, not even just because of putting more people in the seats to say, you know what, we're kind of losing our success rate with these animated films, so we got to bring people back into the theater and back on to Disney Plus, but
Hmm.
also to bring more projects to the parks, is to keep those popular franchises alive. And so now we're probably going to get more Toy Story, more Frozen, and then of course Zootopia. And where else are they going to put Zootopia? Oh, we'll throw it in the park that has to do with animals. And I do agree with you. It does lose a little bit of the integrity of that all natural resource that Animal Kingdom had given us over the years.
Yes, that conservation message, because I think somebody had asked Joe Rohde about, I think they did ask him about dropping Zootopia in the
He was
park.
not a fan. He was not a fan.
No, he said, we can't do this just for the sake of doing this. Animal Kingdom Park has a message of conservation. How does this fit, if at all,
Yeah.
with that
And that's what he
conservation
did. And that's
message?
what he did with Pandora. Because if you actually go back and rewatch the Imagineering story on Disney Plus, he had a hard time with
Yes.
Pandora because he had to find a way to think, okay, how is this going to fit in to the nature of Animal Kingdom, of what it represents, of what it stands for? And so he had to really dig deep into finding some harmonious balance between the film and the park. And the way that he was kind of describing it, it really didn't seem like he was a fan of the films himself. I mean, he
Mm-mm.
really had to dig deep in finding a good balance to put Pandora in Animal Kingdom.
Yeah, and they managed to pull it off.
But I could
Um,
imagine what Pandora could have been. And that's what kind of a little bit worries me about putting Pandora now in Disneyland, if it's done correctly. But because that project was spearheaded by Joe Rohde, and now he's not part of that anymore.
mhm.
And now there's speculation that Scott Trowbridge is going to spearhead Disneyland's version of Pandora, which, nothing against Mr. Trowbridge. I think he did a great job with Galaxy's Edge. He did a phenomenal job at the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man over at Universal. But it's like, can he withhold the standards that Joe Rohde had with taking that mindset of utilizing Pandora and Avatar and putting it in the parks? And that's gonna be interesting to see how that pans out.
Yeah, it really is, because I'm one of those persons where I was very underwhelmed by Galaxy's Edge.
I was too.
And yeah, I was
I was
just
too.
completely underwhelmed by it. And you're right. Joe Rohde was the last of what I call the classic Imagineers, and
Mhm.
understood the concept behind Imagineering. It's an art and it's also a science, and those two kind of have to meld together. So it'll be interesting to see, like you said, what Trowbridge does if they're bringing Pandora over to Disneyland. And the other thing is, how much involvement is James Cameron going to have? Because he had really tight oversight
Yes.
over Pandora being brought in. So I mean, the place is packed every time you go to the Animal Kingdom. You try to go over to Pandora, and it's full of people, and just looks even more gorgeous at night.
Oh, it does. I love the bioluminescent forest aspect of it.
Hmm.
It's perfect.
Yeah, it's just a just managed to slip in there some kind of way to make it, to make
And
it
that was
blend in.
because of Joe Rohde. I think if any other Imagineer was taking on that project, I don't think it would have been to the same caliber. And
I agree.
that's where, you know, when they if and when they do decide to bring Zootopia into the park, which I think 9 out of 10, that's where it's going to go. It's going to take over the place of Dino Land. It's
That's what I was thinking. They've
are
already
they gonna?
cleared spots
Yeah,
for it.
yeah. It's like, are you going to do this in a subtle way where it's like it represents Zootopia, but it still keeps the integrity of the Animal Kingdom Park, or are you just going to throw it in our face and it's like, here's this animated film come to life in a all natural conservation type of park. It's like it still has to be cohesive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Or it'll just kind of take you out of the immersion. And that's something that the Animal Kingdom Park itself is very, very good at from when you enter the park. It's like the vegetation pretty much sucks you
Yes.
in a way, and you're just immersed in just this natural setting.
And the lands are lands based off of real life locations. Like when you walk into Africa, you feel like you are in an African type of village port. And then where
Mhm.
you go on Kilimanjaro safaris, you're going through the savannah in Africa on this nature safari, and then you walk through Asia and you see the Asian culture with these artifacts and these
Mhm.
emblems and the flags hanging down, and then you have Mount Everest in the distance. So it transports you to a real life place, and then that's when you kind of somewhat lose translation there with Pandora, but it's like, okay, you can kind of get the nature side, but then you're going to walk all the way over where the wild theater is, where that holds Finding Nemo the musical, and then you're going to walk
Mhm.
down, and then there's potentially Moana, which is set in a South Pacific Polynesian type of setting, and then right next
Mhm.
to that is a whole entire world of animals and of Zootopia, and it's like, okay, so where does that correlation go when you walk through Asia and Africa?
Exactly, because when you're walking, like you're saying, when you walk through, Africa section, you feel like you're in an African village. There's a Harambe village, even
Hmm.
the buildings look like that. When you're walking over
The
to,
performers. Like, I
oh
love,
my
oh my
gosh,
gosh, to
yes.
walk through Africa and you watch these authentic performers sing that they're so, I mean, I was like tempted, like I would buy like their CDs like every single time because I just love their songs. They're in their traditional African clothing, and it's like the clothing's legit, the music's legit, and then you'd even see some of these carvers that they're carving out of wood, and it's like,
Mhm.
I mean, these people are like dedicated, and it's a representation of their culture. And it's like, it's almost when you kind of just throw something in there just for the sake of it, it's sort of kind of a slap in the face to what this park is a representation of. And it's real life world culture.
You're abs 100% right. I mean, when the pandemic popped off and they basically cut the entertainment budget, I was really upset that
Hmm.
those musicians were gone because it was not the same park.
No.
And I think I did a live stream about I think maybe two, was it last week? no, it was week before last week, and I went, and we were walking through Harambe Village, and happened to see the performers, and I was geeking out. I was like, I have not seen them in like 2 years, and just the crowds of people around them, just enjoying it. There was another musician, I guess he's just a solo performer, but he was out there, and I'm like showing this, and I said, this, all of this brings the atmosphere of what's at the Animal Kingdom Park. When you go over to the Asia section, all of the decorations, all of the props, all the facades, all of it, it literally looks like you're somewhere in India, again, down to the musicians. And there's that immersion that
And
is so unique.
And going back to Joe Rody, in order to make it so authentic and real, he made his team, along with himself, go to these places. Like they traveled the globe
Hmm.
to go to Africa, to go to Asia, to go to India. That they visited all of these real life exotic places, so they can kind of take a mindset and transport everything back into this park. And that's where this park is so unique and different from any other Disney park. And I fear that it's going to lose
Yeah.
that special quality to it.
And it's like I don't want that part to be lost, because even during the holidays, the Animal Kingdom is, I mean, I love going to Magic Kingdom. That's like my favorite part. Love going there. But I also love going to the Animal Kingdom
Hmm.
park at the holidays. It's just gorgeous. And then one year we stayed at the Animal Kingdom Lodge, which is a wonderful flipping hotel. Especially if you must get a Savannah view. I'm sorry. I just pay the
Oh yeah,
money.
yeah. If you're staying at Animal Kingdom Lodge and you're already going to pay that premium price, just go all out and have a Savannah view. You
Yeah.
have to.
You have to do it. You have to do it, because with the Savannah view, and then all the artifacts that are in the hotel, and then with the cultural representatives that they have there, which they can tell you about their culture and everything, it's just the best experience. And you couple that with going over to the Animal Kingdom. I mean, the immersion is still it's still there, but it's just like amped up, to another level. And
You
it's
can
something you can't
literally
capture with an IP.
exactly, and you literally could spend a weekend, stay at Animal Kingdom Lodge. You have your Savannah view, go out, see the animals outside the hotel, go
Hmm.
over to Animal Kingdom that's adjacent right to your hotel. Literally just do a weekend of that. You don't even have to do the other parks, and just that immersion, you kind of lose the aspect to say, "Oh, that's right. I'm at Walt Disney World in Florida, but wait, I really feel like I'm on an African savannah about
Hmm.
to go on this African safari and seeing all these exotic animals. It transports you there, and it's like when you have certain elements, it'll kind of throw you out of that mindset, and that's
Yeah,
where it defeats the whole purpose.
exactly. Exactly. Man, I could talk Disney for like several several hours, but folks, we have got to wrap up. So first of all, I want to thank Disney George for coming on my channel. It's been absolutely, absolutely wonderful, wonderful discussion, and cannot wait to have you back either for another recorded stream or popping in on our theme park Geeks and Divas stream. So
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And I most definitely will. Whenever you have the time, I have the time. I'm always up to talk some good conversation with Disney, and just, and that's what I love about this community is sharing it with people who share the same passion and interest as I do. And that it took a while to find my group of Disney peeps, but I mean
mhm.
it eventually it came. And so I'm very thankful and grateful to everyone who is now part of my life. And so I thank you greatly for inviting me on, and I can't wait to be back on soon.
Okay. Well, again, thank you so much for being on, George. Folks, you must follow him on Twitter. You must subscribe to him on YouTube. So, with that said, thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye.